A few weeks ago, I took a trip through the backroads of Appalachia. I'm a freelance writer and I love gathering eerie tales and folklore. I stayed at a little bed and breakfast run by an elderly couple. The place looked ordinary enough, but there was something off about it. I felt a strange energy in the air the minute I walked in. I couldn't shake the feeling. That evening, after my first day of driving, I heard raised voices coming from the kitchen. They were whispering, but I caught phrases like night visitor. A chill ran down my spine. Maybe it was just a disagreement over the weather, I thought. Still, my curiosity gnawed at me. I brushed it off and went to bed. The next day I set out to explore. I drove down narrow gravel roads and saw twisted trees with strange symbols carved into their bark. It made me uneasy. The wind gusted through the leaves and every sound felt louder. I noticed locals avoided certain spots. They didn't want to talk when I brought it up. That evening, I found an old photo album in the attic. The pictures showed smiling families, but behind them were shadows that didn't look right. I held them in my hands, my fingers shaking. Was the couple aware I would find them? I thought about those shadows again. What did they mean? As I continued my explorations, I noticed odd behavior from animals. A deer stood frozen, staring at me with wide eyes. I felt like it was watching me. I heard a low growl behind me, but when I turned, nothing was there. My heart raced. I wasn't sure if it was all a coincidence or if something sinister lurked nearby. That night I tried to shake my nerves. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. I thought about the shadows, the whispers, and how locals wouldn't give me straight answers. Everything felt connected. Then I heard something outside. A faint scratching sound followed by silence. Was it the wind or something else? I wasn't sure anymore. The next morning I confronted the couple about the night visitor. They exchanged glances, fear in their eyes. I took a breath, feeling the air around me grow cold. They told me to leave. Their voices shook. You don't want to know what lurks in the hills. That icy chill traveled down my spine. In that moment I realized I'd stumbled into something deeper than I expected. I had to decide. Should I stay or should I run? I was too far into this mystery to turn back. I had come looking for stories, but what was I really uncovering? What truly lay in those hills? I thought about driving away, but a part of me was drawn deeper. I wanted answers. But as I stood there, the atmosphere felt thick and charged. What secrets were buried in the darkness? And what kind of horrors were waiting for me if I lingered too long? I didn't sleep that night. I tossed and turned, my mind racing with the warnings from the couple. As dawn broke, I decided to take a drive. Maybe I could shake off the tension and find a piece of clarity in the morning light. I drove towards a trailhead I had spotted on my map. It led to a nearby overlook said to offer spectacular views of the surrounding hills. I hoped the fresh air would clear my head. But as I parked my car, doubts crept in. Something felt off in the atmosphere. It was heavy, as if the woods themselves were holding their breath. I ventured along the trail, surrounded by towering trees and the distant calls of birds. It felt serene at first, but that calm quickly dulled under the weight of unease. I kept thinking about the old couple. Why were they so afraid? My heart sank as I remembered their eyes when I brought up the night visitor. I was determined to uncover the mystery, but with every step, I wondered if I was straying too close to something I shouldn't. Finally, I reached the overlook. The view was breathtaking, but the beauty felt hollow. I scanned the horizon, searching for anything that could give me insight into what lay beneath the surface. That's when I noticed it. A glint of something shiny in the brush below. Curiosity got the better of me and I had to investigate. I carefully made my way down the slope, dodging uneven rocks and clumps of underbrush. As I got closer, I realized I was looking at an old, rusted sign half buried in the dirt. It read, "Warning, do not enter." My stomach dropped. Why was this hidden away? I kicked away some of the dirt to reveal more of the sign. Underneath the warning was a crude drawing of a twisted figure that sent chills through me. Then I heard it, a distant, eerie howl that echoed through the trees. It wasn't a typical animal sound. I froze, tension gripping my muscles. It was as if the forest had answered me. Panic swelled in my chest. I turned to head back up the slope when I felt something brush against my leg. I looked down and there it was, a pair of eyes watching me from the thicket. My pulse quickened. The hair on my arms stood on end. I couldn't make out what it was. I took a step back, fear clouding my thoughts as the eyes blinked slowly, unblinking and intense. I was rooted in place. I wanted to scream, but nothing came out. That ancient warning echoed in my mind. Something was wrong here. Before I could process what to do, the creature shifted, revealing a twisted, shadowy form. It moved just beyond the tree line, flickering in and out of view, almost like smoke. I stumbled back, my instincts screaming at me to flee. Suddenly, everything went dark. The sunlight vanished behind gathering clouds, plunging me into eerie twilight. I was not alone anymore. Something was coming, and it was hungry. I stood frozen, staring into the depths of the forest where the creature lingered, the shadows wrapping around it like a shroud. Fear coursed through me, but a strange curiosity rooted me to the spot. I had to know what I was dealing with, but my instincts told me to run. Then I heard it again, the howl, closer this time and more dissonant. It sent a shiver down my spine. I knew I shouldn't be there. I was trespassing in a world that had warnings for a reason. But as the sky darkened, I felt compelled to act. I turned and sprinted up the trail, heart racing. Branches snapped under my feet as I stumbled over rocks and roots, the creature's presence a haunting echo behind me. What if it followed? What if it knew I was running? My legs burned as I pushed myself harder, desperate for safety. Just as I neared the overlook, a movement in my peripheral vision caught my eye. I glanced over and saw something darting between the trees, something quick, something small. It had the same twisted form, but was not as menacing as the first shadow. My breath hitched, confusion overwhelming my mind. Was this one a warning or an invitation? Before I could process it, the air shifted. A cool breeze swept through the scene as if the trees exhaled. I felt it carry a whisper, a barely audible murmur that brushed against my ears. "Leave," it said. "Go back." I hesitated. This area was filled with unknowns. The old couple's warnings flashed through my mind. I had to leave, and fast. I reached the overlook, where I had first marveled at the views that now felt like a mockery of my situation. Below me, the valley was now shrouded in mist. The sun's light was all but gone, casting everything in a surreal twilight. Shapes moved in the underbrush, sinister presences lurking in the shadows. My heart raced as I stumbled to the edge of the overlook, scanning for signs of life or retreat. That's when I noticed something beneath the mist. A faint glow that pulsed rhythmically. What was it? I took a hesitant step forward, inching closer to the edge. Despite all reason telling me to back away, I felt drawn to it, like the moth to a flame. But then the howl rose again, this time coming from below. It was no longer distant. It sounded like it belonged to the very earth beneath me. I wasn't safe. I turned to run, desperation flooding my veins, when I caught a glimpse of it. Amber eyes staring up at me from below, filled with a hunger I couldn't comprehend. I stumbled backward, heart pounding. I had to get out of there. I wiped the sweat from my brow, and then the glow turned a blinding white. Everything around me blurred as an intense heat washed over my skin. I felt my legs weaken, my mind racing with questions. Why was I still here? What if I was too late? Then just as abruptly the light vanished, leaving me in darkness once more, the forest closing in. I could hear movement, the sound of branches snapping around me. Whatever was out there, it was getting closer. I took off down the path, not looking back, afraid of what I might see. That's when I heard it. A whisper like gravel scraping against stone. "You shouldn't have come," it breathed. My breath hitched again. What had I stumbled into? What lay deeper within the woods? I ran as fast as I could, the panic clawing at my chest. Branches grabbed at my clothes, the forest thorns tearing at my skin. Every sound made me jump. A rustle here, a snap there. I didn't dare look back. I could feel the presence heavy in the air, the promise of something just out of sight, something far too close. My legs felt like jelly when I finally reached the clearing where the old couple's cabin stood. Shadows still lurked around its edges, but I didn't have time to analyze them. I knew I had to get inside. I tried the door. Locked. My heart sank, but desperation overpowered any rational thought. I glanced around, searching for another way in. That was when I noticed the back window slightly ajar. I rushed over, lifted it, and slipped inside. The cabin smelled of dust and decay, a stark contrast to the panic still rushing through my veins. My eyes scanned the room, taking in the overturned chairs and scattered items. It looked like something had been here recently. I caught my breath and leaned against the wall, listening. Outside, the whispers grew louder, mixed with rustling leaves. I was safe inside, or so I told myself. Just as I started to settle down, I heard it again. You shouldn't have come. This time it was clearer, more defined. Just beyond the walls, shadows flickered in the fading light. I peered through a crack in the door, anxiety gripping me again. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. A small movement caught my attention. A figure emerged from the trees, stumbling forward. It was the small creature I had seen before, its form less sinister up close, yet still strange. It stopped at the edge of the clearing, glancing back towards the forest as if watching for something. My curiosity battled my fear. I edged toward the window, squinting to see better. That was when I noticed something strange. A light flickered just behind the creature, illuminating the darkening forest with an ethereal glow. I pulled myself back, heart racing. My instincts told me to stay put, to remain hidden. Whoever or whatever was out there had potential for danger. "What do you want?" I whispered into the stillness, half hoping it would hear me and reply. Suddenly the creature turned its blind gaze towards me, its eyes wider than before. It wasn't the face of a predator. Rather, it felt almost pleading. In that moment, I realized that I wasn't just running away from something. I might be running towards it. Just then, another howl echoed through the trees, this time accompanied by a chorus of strange voices layered beneath it. A chill gripped me. Whatever lay outside was not just a single threat. It was a gathering. They were coming for me. I backed away from the window, my mind racing. I needed a plan. I remembered the old couple's stories, their warnings about the woods, something about guardians, about watchers. They never explained what they meant. Maybe that was my first mistake. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught movement again. The creature was no longer alone. Dark figures emerged from the shadows, slipping into the clearing with a quiet grace. There were more of them now, forming a semicircle around the cabin. I stumbled away from the window, my heart pounding once more as dread seized me. I needed to figure out what was going on, and fast. But then, a familiar whisper broke through the silence. "Leave while you can." Panic surged in me. What did I do? The whispers grew more frantic outside the cabin. I pressed my back against the wall, willing my breathing to steady. I could feel the pulse of fear thrumming in my veins. I couldn't just stay here, waiting for whatever was outside to find me. Glancing around the room, I spotted an old chest in the corner. With no other options, I hurried towards it, hoping to find something useful inside. My fingers fumbled with the latch, the metal cold against my warmth. It creaked open, and I peered in. The chest was filled with various items, hunting gear, a lantern, and an old rusty machete. I grabbed the machete and held it tightly, feeling a bit of courage surge through me. I wasn't entirely defenseless now. I returned to the window, crouching low to avoid detection. The figures outside had shifted closer, the glow from their strange light revealing more details. They looked almost human, but with features that felt wrong. Eyes too large, limbs too long. They moved with an eerie fluidity, their heads bobbing, their whispers still overlapping and buzzing. What did they want from me? Then I focused my gaze on the center of the gathering. The small creature stood there unperturbed by the larger figures. Just as I was about to question its presence, it turned its head and suddenly made direct eye contact with me. Panic shot through me again. Its eyes were deep, almost endless, as if they could see right into my soul. I didn't want to be paralyzed by fear. I had to make a decision. But just as I began to think about the back door, the whispers grew sharper, more demanding. "Come to us. You must join." What was that supposed to mean? I shook my head, trying to clear the confusion. Maybe the tales the old couple shared weren't just stories. What if these creatures weren't the monsters I thought they were? I hesitated, torn between my gut instinct to escape and a strange pull to follow. The creature beckoned me with its small arms, not with menace, but almost imploringly. And then, a sudden rustling from the woods pulled my attention away. The dark figures froze, shifting their focus to where the sound came from. My heart raced. Something larger, something more menacing was approaching. That was when a low growl echoed through the clearing. Fear gripped me tight as I turned to see what emerged from the shadows. My breath caught in my throat. It was unlike anything I had seen. A hulking figure, with twisted horns and glaring eyes that glowed like embers. Suddenly, all the figures around the cabin tensed, shifting nervously as the creature drew closer. My instincts screamed at me. I had to get out now. I turned to make a break for the back door, but as I did, a shadow loomed over me. Someone was in the house. I spun around, heart racing, my eyes darting to the intruder. A figure cloaked in shadow stood by the door. I couldn't see their face, but the outline suggested they were tall, almost too tall. A chill crept down my spine as I tightened my grip on the machete. "Who are you?" I managed to whisper, my voice trembling. The figure didn't answer. They lifted one hand. A gesture. Were they here to help or hurt? I readied myself, ready to swing the blade if necessary. The whispering outside intensified, a chorus of demands that echoed inside, blending confusion with terror. "Leave!" I shouted, hoping to awaken some sense of self-preservation in them. Instead, the figure stepped forward, but just as they did, a loud crash resonated from outside. The hulking beast had entered the clearing, and its growl intensified. My instincts flared again, a desperate urge to escape. But the shadowy figure blocked my path. "Please," they said, their voice smooth but clipped, as if pulled from the depths of the forest. "You need to listen." Suddenly I recognized the voice. It was the man from the tales, the one who had told me what lurked beyond the trees. But there was something off about him now. His eyes glinted in the dim light, reflecting not just fear, but something darker, something primal. "What's happening?" I pressed, stepping back, adrenaline surging through me. "Their call, it's a trap. They want you to join them," he said urgently, peering toward the growing chaos outside. "You cannot follow. You must stay away." Panic clawed at my throat. I glanced at the window, watching as the small creature raised its hand, beckoning me still. The larger figures shifted back, forming a circle as if guarding something. The growling from the beast grew louder, shaking the cabin's walls. "I can't stay here," I cried. "I need to get out." "Then we both die," he shouted. "They'll take us both if you leave." I registered the manic desperation in his voice, but uncertainty gnawed at me. Could I trust him? The whispers began to swell, thrumming with urgency. The man's gaze shot back to the window, then back to me. I could see the fear now, raw and real. "I've been watching them for years," he said, voice lowering. "They're not what you think. But the beast, it won't stop until it finds you. It's drawn to your fear." "What are you talking about?" I said, my grip slackening on the machete. He took a step closer, but his shadow flickered oddly, almost merging with the darkness behind him. "We have to leave now, while they're distracted." But before I could respond, the creature outside screeched, a sound so alien and piercing it felt like a knife through my skull. I staggered backward into the chest, knocking over the lantern. Oil spilled onto the floor, igniting in a small flame. "Now!" he shouted, lunging forward as the fire crackled, but I was frozen in place. The door creaked ominously, and I realized the beast was only seconds away from breaking through. I had to make my choice. Fight or flee with a stranger shrouded in mystery. And that's when the shadow shifted again, revealing an unexpected truth. The figure was transforming. I watched in horror as the shadow twisted and morphed before my eyes. The tall figure that had invaded my sanctuary now seemed to shimmer, its edges blurring into something almost ethereal. For a split second, I thought I was losing my mind, but then the transformation stabilized, revealing a creature that looked half human and half beast. "Run!" I snapped, my instincts kicking back in. I clutched the machete tightly once more, fear pushing me past the initial shock of what stood before me. The figure, or whatever it had become, looked at me with wild eyes, its features twisted in a grotesque semblance of a person I had once known. "You must trust me," it pleaded, but the beast outside roared again, drowning out its words. With a heavy heart, I hurled the machete to the floor. I didn't have the energy to fight anymore. But facing this creature, I felt more cornered than ever. Then I heard it. A crash against the door, sending splinters flying through the air. The beast's monstrous form loomed, its eyes reflecting the flames from the lantern now engaging the floorboards. I realized in that moment that I had no way out other than through this creature. "What do you want from me?" I shouted, trying to keep my voice steady. "They want you to give in to your fear. They'll consume you if you let them," it said, raising its arms as if to shield me. A shudder rippled through the cabin as the reek of smoke filled the confined space. I felt the heat of the fire licking at my legs. Images of the creatures outside flooded my mind. What if they were right? What if they had come for me? With newfound determination, I gathered all my courage. "Then let's fight," I said, clenching my fists. The half-human creature nodded, its strange features flashing with a hint of something familiar. "There's a way. They won't touch you as long as you hold on to hope. You resist, they can't take you." I turned back toward the door, heart racing with adrenaline and dread. The beast screeched again, slamming into the wooden structure, splintering a corner of the frame, pushing its way closer. "Do you have a plan?" I gasped. "Distract it," the creature replied, scanning the room. "I will help you from behind." I grabbed a nearby chair and hurled it towards the door, causing the beast to misstep as it charged forward. It howled in anger, momentarily withdrawing. That's when I noticed it, the light through the window brightening as the fire in the cabin began to grow stronger. Suddenly, the shadows lurked less menacingly, showing me a reflection of my own resilience. But did I trust this creature enough to reveal my true potential? "I've got to create an escape route," I shouted, desperate to make my move. As I examined the wooden panels around me, I realized I needed to get outside. Now, the creature hesitated, watching me with concern. "If you go out, you must stick to the shadows, blend in with the darkness." "Let's go," I urged, adrenaline spiking in my veins. But before we could move, the door imploded inward with a deafening crash. The massive beast charged into the cabin, its maw wide and eyes blazing with fury. We may have been allies in this moment, but I felt more trapped than ever. That's when everything went dark. I awoke to silence. No fire flickered, no beast roared. I blinked against the strange darkness that wrapped around me. When my eyes finally adjusted, I realized I lay on the cabin floor, the remnants of my world scattered about like forgotten memories. "Is anyone there?" I called out, my voice a shaky whisper. There was no response. The air felt thick and heavy, almost suffocating. As I rose, a shimmer caught my eye. The creature was next to me, its form now more defined but still monstrous. "You're safe, for now," it said softly. "Where's the beast?" I asked, scanning the room. The door was a mess of splintered wood and torn hinges, but it was empty. "Distracted," it replied. "I needed to weaken its hold on you." The creature's eyes held a strange warmth, and a flicker of hope sparked in my chest. "What do you mean, its hold?" I asked, pulling myself to my feet. "The shadows can influence your mind, make you doubt yourself. You began to let fear in." It gestured toward the window, where the moonlight seeped through the gaps, casting an eerie glow. "That's why we must get out. We're running out of time." I felt a rush of anger mixed with confusion. "You're telling me to run from my fears? But you've become half a creature. Are you even real?" "I am what you need me to be." it replied, its voice steady. You too can become something more than this fear that binds you. I wanted to scream. I didn't want to trust again. Still, I knew I had no other choice. Fine. How do we escape? Remember the shadows. Move when it is dark. Follow me. It stepped closer to the broken door, then paused, looking back at me. And don't let go of hope. As I followed its lead, adrenaline surged through me. I stepped into the darkness, feeling the cool air wash over my skin. But the moment I crossed the threshold, a sudden sound froze me in place. A low, haunting growl reverberated from the space outside. I turned back, but the creature urged me forward with a nod. Now! Without thinking, I sprinted through the jagged doorframe, my heart pounding. Each step carried me away from the cabin and toward the forest outside. The trees loomed ahead, their dark forms a chaotic jumble against the starry sky. Suddenly, I heard a crack of branches behind me. The creature was right. Something was coming. I ducked into the shadows of the trees, adrenaline coursing through me, my instincts screaming to keep moving. That's when I tripped and fell into a fallen log. Pain shot through my leg, but I barely had a moment to collect myself before the beast charged into the clearing behind me. It was massive, a shadow shaped like nightmares, sniffing the air. I scrambled to my feet, but as I glanced back, I saw the creature rising too, its form melding into the darkness. Stay still, it hissed. I felt breathless. The beast was relentless, and it was one step away. My heart raced as I struggled to remember what the creature had said. Hope, I repeated softly, focusing on that flicker within me. But then I saw it. Another shadow, creeping in closer. Emerging from the darkness I thought safe. Someone else was in the woods. I held my breath, fear gripping me hard. Who else was out there? And were they friend or foe? I steadied myself, shadows dancing around me as the newcomer stepped closer. The moonlight caught glints off something metallic. A blade? My heart raced. Who's there? I called out, forcing my voice to break the tension. The creature beside me tensed, its form shifting, almost protective. Hold your ground, it whispered, its voice barely audible above the thick rustle of branches. The figure stepped fully into view, revealing a young woman, wild-eyed and breathless. I heard the growl. Are you okay? She glanced nervously between me and the creature, uncertainty flashing across her face. Do I look okay? I shot back, the fear pulsing through me, igniting annoyance. What are you doing here? I was running too, she said, hands up, showing she meant no harm. My family, there's something in the woods. We thought it was just a bear, but it's not. It's something else. She glanced over her shoulder, and I knew we didn't have much time. The beast's growl echoed louder, a dark promise of what it wanted. We have to keep moving, I said, urgency clawing at me. Together? She asked, eyebrows knitted together in a mixture of hope and doubt. Together, I confirmed. I reached out to the creature, which seemed to nod in agreement. Stay close to me, both of you, it instructed, its voice taking charge. You need to trust the shadows. They can hide you if you let them. Without waiting for a reply, I led the way into the underbrush, the woman falling in line beside me. The trees swallowed us, blackness enveloping everything except for the sound of our hurried breaths. We moved cautiously, the earth squeezing soft beneath our feet. Every crack of a twig radiated through me like thunder. Just as I thought we'd escaped, I glanced back to see the beast emerge from the trees, its form hulking. It lumbered forward, the shadows clinging to it like an old skin. Faster, I urged, adrenaline snapping me into action. We can't stop. I could sense the creature's hunger behind us, but I also felt the woman's presence beside me. What did you mean? Something else. It doesn't feel real, she said breathlessly. It can mimic voices. It felt like my brother calling to me. She shuddered, her eyes wide with fear. The ground sloped downward, and before we knew it, we stumbled into a clearing, illuminated by the silvery moon. Panic coursed through me. This was a trap. As we stood there gasping, I felt a cold wind whip around us. A chilling howl pierced the air from all directions, sending shivers down my spine. The creature had found its voice, a melody of sound that seemed to blend with the night. "That's it!" the woman yelled. "It's trying to separate us!" "No! Together!" I shouted. "Stick together!" But even as I said it, I felt the weight of the shadows pulling us apart, local whispers wrapping around my thoughts. I could feel fear surging, threatening to drown my hope. That's when I noticed something in the clearing, an old stone well, half covered in vines. "The well!" I exclaimed, an idea forming in my mind. "We can hide inside." "Are you crazy?" the woman protested. "What if it traps us?" "It's our only chance," I insisted. The ground shook. The beast was close. I grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the well before the shadows engulfed us both. And as we dove in, a chilling understanding crept in. Whatever was pursuing us had far more control than I had realized. The coolness of the well enveloped us as we landed on surprisingly soft earth. The dark swallowed us, but the sound of the beast's growls faded, muffled by the thick stone walls. Heart pounding, I strained to hear anything outside, but the silence was heavy, almost oppressive. "Is it gone?" the woman asked, her voice barely a whisper. "I don't know," I replied, scanning the dim light filtering from above. "We need to stay quiet. If it's still looking for us, we'll have to wait it out." Her breath huffed unevenly beside me. I could feel the tension radiating from her, a mirror of my own fear. "What happens if it finds us down here?" she continued, her voice trembling. I didn't have an answer. I wanted to tell her we'd be fine, that we would escape this nightmare. But hiding felt like admitting defeat. "We just have to hope it moves on," I said. "If it thinks we're gone, it might leave." Minutes passed. Each second seemed to stretch on into eternity, the silence wrapping around us like a shroud. I kept expecting to hear the creature's dreadful howl or heavy footfalls, but instead, there was only our breath echoing off the damp walls of the well. Finally, the girl spoke up. "You said something about the shadows. Do you think the creature can see us in here?" "I don't know," I admitted. "But if, or when it comes back, we need to be ready." There was no denying the urgency I felt. Just then, a low rumble resonated above us, chilling me to my core. The beast was back, its growls slicing through the air with a hint of frustration. "What are we going to do?" she whispered fiercely, the panic taking hold. "We wait. Maybe it doesn't realize we slipped away," I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "What if it does realize?" My heart pounded louder in my ears. The shadows outside seemed to thicken, and I felt an odd pull, as though they were straining to breach the well's sanctuary. And then, an unexpected voice echoed from above, cutting through the growls. "Leave them alone, you horrid thing." A familiar voice shouted, the timbre unmistakable. I squinted against the dim light, trying to understand what I was hearing. The figure of the cloaked man, the one I thought I left behind, was back. He was standing by the well, a fading silhouette wrestling with the darkness above. "Get down!" I yelled to the girl as I scrambled to my feet. I grabbed her arm, pulling her closer to the walls, hoping to shield us from whatever the creature had in mind. The man's voice soared, firm but weary. "I took care of your sisters, now let them be." I could barely process those words when a piercing scream erupted from the forest, echoing through the night. "Those weren't just shadows," I muttered. "They were covering something. It wants. It craves. But what? Why does it want us?" she asked, with disbelief in her eyes. "Because we stumbled in," I murmured. "We're not meant for this place." "Not meant for this," she echoed, her mind racing through the implications. "Like a sacrifice?" A bone-chilling howl ripped through the forest, cutting her question short. "We're either a threat or an offering to whatever that is up there," I said, dread filling the pit of my stomach. Suddenly, something shadowy shifted too close to the rim of the well. I barely had time to register before the earth shook, and claws, fierce and taloned, gripped the edge. "Back!" I shrieked, pushing her back. The growl seemed to blend with frantic whispers, rising and falling like a tortured symphony of voices. The man's shadow surged, and for a moment, I thought I saw him moving toward the edge. I reached out desperately. "Don't! Just go!" But I felt my voice fade away as the ground trembled once more. The creature's eyes pierced through the darkness, locking onto where we hid, its amber glow illuminating fearsome shapes. It was searching, relentless. I felt the ground beneath us tilt dangerously. "We need to do something," I shouted, my heart racing against the darkness. Suddenly the shadows around the well stirred, shifting like a living entity. "Trust the shadows, remember?" the man called, fear bubbling into desperation. "You can't let the darkness take your hope." In that instant, a glimmer of resolve ignited within me. "We'll hold on to it," I declared. "Hold on to what?" the girl asked, bewildered. "To hope, to each other." I breathed as I reached for her hand. Together they're stronger than us, at least they were. But we're not helpless. Above us the growl faltered and echoed, and I understood. We had to face whatever lay outside. This creature might not be the only thing lurking in the dark. As the shadows writhed like angry serpents, I stepped forward, my voice cutting through the chaos. "You don't own us!" A howl pierced my spirit, fueled by ferocity and defiance. I wanted control, not just paralysis. I felt the girl's grip tighten around my hand. "Together," we shouted, fortifying each other with our voices. The air shimmered, and almost instinctively, a shield seemed to coalesce around us, an energy fueled by our resolve. And in that molten moment, the shadows recoiled, grimacing as if we'd summoned a force beyond their comprehension. The beast halted, confused, its amber eyes flickering uncertainly as we became the very essence of the confrontation between light and dark. Moments stretched agonizingly, and in our defiance it felt like a power surged deeper than fear. For an instant, I thought we might just reclaim what was ours. "Stay with me," I whispered through gritted teeth. "We can do this." Though we stood at the precipice of uncertainty, the dark forms hesitated, wavering slightly. It felt as if the human in me stood a fighting chance against the shadow engulfing my heart. The well's grip tightened around us, but I had a glimmer of hope, a notion blossoming at my core. "We can escape this," I cried again, louder this time. But in the next breath, a sharp crack rang above, the edge of the well crumbling away. Shadows spilled into the depths, and the darkness fractured and warred against the light we glimpsed within. "Hold on!" the man shouted, reaching out desperately. "We're leaving!" I yelled back, hope igniting as I grasped the girl's hand tighter. Together, we pushed, wanting nothing more than to transcend the darkness, and with that we surged toward the light, calling out our intent to break free. The shadows screeched, clinging on, grasping at us, but we were steadfast. Together, it felt like we could burn bright enough to push it all away. The light became blinding as we burst forth, weightless, running into an uncertain night, but we were free. And as we stumbled forward into the wild, the echoes of the forest lingered, unbidden and unresolved, a reminder of the shadows we had faced, and of the darkness still looming on the edge of unseen horizons. I drove away with the girl beside me, leaving that dreadful place behind, but sometimes even now I wonder, are those shadows gone for good? Or do they lurk in wait for the next traveler? And what does it mean to be chased by darkness? The whispers still haunt me, a reminder of the stories left untold. Those hills hold secrets, and while I escaped, the questions remain. What truly dwells in the dark? Will I return? Or have I merely escaped the grasp of shadows waiting for an invitation?